Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. So today I really want to talk with you guys about being single and learning to love yourself and everything in that sort of realm. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, but I thought that since Valentine's Day is getting closer, this would be a good time to do it. I don't typically give advice on this channel because, as any of you who have been watching know, like, my life is sort of in shambles. I don't really feel like I'm in a place to give advice, but in this one area, on this one topic, I do feel like I have some valuable things to say. So that is what I'll be doing today, starting with going over my story with self-love and being chronically single for most of my life, and then going over some mindset work that I've done, and then finally just sharing some fun activities that us single people can do this month to feel a little less lonely. So yeah, let's get into it. So to summarize, in case you don't want to listen to the whole backstory that I'm about to share, I am 22 and I've never had my first kiss. I've never been on a date. I've never been in a real relationship, just a kind of really damaging online situationship thing with a very manipulative guy. And so I feel like, as far as being chronically single goes, I've sort of, got the credentials to back myself up here. But now, if you are interested in the whole backstory, let's kind of talk about how I got to this point. So, first of all, I was homeschooled as a kid, which means I didn't really have the whole, high school romance thing. I never, had prom or any of that stuff. None of those sort of rite of passage teenage romances that you hear about. I never had that. And because I live in a really small town, there wasn't a homeschool group or anything. I genuinely didn't really spend time with people my age growing up. And then once I became an adult, there were several factors at play as to why I sort of never have had a relationship up until this point. First of all, like I said, really small town. Predominantly the young people graduate and then move away because there's really not a lot of work opportunities. There's nowhere to live. It's a very small town and there's not a lot of people my age here. And then secondly, I really struggle with my mental health and with anxiety, and so I've sort of been working from home the best I can this whole time. So I don't really get out of the house a lot either, to be honest, which sort of compounds on the problem. And then lastly, I did have a situationship sort of thing for 2.5 years that also made me think that I didn't want to actively try to seek out men in my area. And that's what we're about to get into right now. So when I turned 18, I got on Twitch and I started streaming gaming. And I was doing this to sort of get over some social anxiety. I wanted to make friends. I was just figuring stuff out. I was freshly 18. And I met this guy who was also starting to stream around this time, and he was from the UK, and he had this whole group that he would hang out with online and play games with. It was a complete little online friend group, and we would all hang out in Discord together, and I pretty much immediately developed a massive crush on him. And to be fair, part of this was almost certainly because I had never really had anyone to crush on, so it made it that much more intense. But also, he was really handsome and really charismatic, and he was 3 years older than me, and I was just really, really into him. And I'm going to save you guys from a lot of the details of what went on, but basically for like the first year or so, I was just crushing on him big time. We would kind of like flirt, but it wasn't anything, noteworthy, I suppose. But as we continued to sort of get to know each other as friends, like my crush just sort of got bigger and bigger. And then I did start having like really genuine like feelings for him. And that was, obviously the first time I'd ever had like romantic feelings for anyone. I eventually sort of told him like, hey, like I'm really into you. I, know that we live really far from each other, but I think, we could maybe save up and try to visit each other. And I think, we could give it a shot. Like, I've heard of long distance relationships working before. Like, that's just something to consider. And then I told him, I was like, but if you don't feel the same way about me, like, that's totally fine. We can just continue on as friends and whatever. And a little while after I told him that, he did end up telling me that, yes, he wanted to be together, and that we could figure things out. And that relationship lasted about a year. So everything else that I'm going to be saying happened in like a year's time. So he pretty quickly sped up from like, okay, we're dating now, to like, I am in love with you, you're the one, like, we are going to figure our lives out, and then you can move here to be with me, and then we can, get married and have kids. And like, he was just like fully like, yes, like, you are the one I want to be with, whatever. And obviously that was, ridiculous. Like, we had never even seen each other in person. I was literally 19 at this point. That's crazy. But I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought, in my head, I was like, well, we're soulmates. Like, obviously this is, working out because we're meant to be. And, when he was telling me he loved me, I believed him. And at first, it really just seemed like we had just fallen in love when we were in a long distance relationship, at least to me. And it was really good for like a month or two. And I told all of my family that, I had a boyfriend from the UK. Like, he even met a lot of them on like video calls and stuff. And he said that his family also knew about me. But then after like the first few months, he would start like, he would like love bomb me. Now I know this is what this is, but I didn't know then. He would like love bomb me with, wanting to like be on the phone with me all the time, telling me I was the one, all this different stuff. And then he would go through these periods of being kind of like mean, like really chipping away at my self-confidence, going off the radar for like days at a time, because he knew I had anxiety and that it would stress me out. Just like suddenly acting like he was mad at me for no reason, but then a couple days later he'd be back to his normal self. Just a lot of different toxic things. And over that year, I also started, saying like, hey, we need to start planning for like a visit between us. And I was like, I don't have a passport, and you do. So I was like, so maybe the first visit needs to be you coming to see me. And he was like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, I will. And he told me he was like saving up money for it. And on my end, I was also trying to save up as much as I could at the time, because remember, I was very young and, working from home. I started trying to save up as much as I could to then take a trip to see him after he had come to see me. And I even sent him money to help with his fund to come see me, which was a mistake. I never saw that money again. But then he ended up saying, like, actually, I'm going to take a trip to Iceland instead. He was like, I just kind of feel the need to like solo travel and find myself before I come to see you. And I was like, okay. So then he went on this trip to Iceland, and then came back and, you know, like love bombed me some more. And over time, I was just kind of getting more and more frustrated, like starting to feel like he wasn't taking things as seriously, you know, as I was taking it. And I started to worry, like, wow, maybe he doesn't actually love me, even though he says that he does, which, like, girl, duh. But remember, I was young, naive. This was my first go at things like this. But whenever I would sort of bring up my concerns to him, you know, he'd get really mad at me, and then I got like scared to like bring up those concerns anymore because I'm not a very confrontational person, and like anger makes me nervous. And I was still operating under this thing of like, well, I don't want to make him so mad that he will, you know, break up with me and stop talking to me, and you know. But as he was sort of testing the limits of like what I would let him get away with, without saying, you know what, screw you, and like stop talking to him, he would sort of get worse and worse. So then I started to find out like, oh, he actually had never told his family about me. And then I was kind of like, wow, like that's a really big lie that you've been telling me this whole time. And I started catching him in more and more lies. And like, I'm only scratching the surface of what occurred during this time, but it was really taking a toll on me, like mentally, like more than I can even explain. But I just continued to put up with it because in my mind, like I just wasn't willing to lose what I thought that I had. And I did love him, but you know, I was in love with someone who didn't exist, basically. I was in love with the projection that he was giving me sometimes, and not with the guy that he was every other time. But whenever he would sort of stop love bombing me, I would just be waiting for that guy who love bombed me to come back. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, he's so good to me sometimes. So then I want to stick around, you know, for that guy, and he's just going through something right now, etc. You know, it was really doing a lot of bad things to my head. So many talks with my mom later, I finally worked up the courage to end things with him, because, you know, I still believed that it had been a long distance relationship, and it didn't go well. He got really angry. I ended up having to like literally block him, and then he messaged my mom, and after he figured out that I wasn't coming back and I wasn't going to unblock him, he told her, well, that's fine, I only ever saw her as a friend anyway. I was never really in love with her, we were never really together. And that was like a whole other like, whoa, like, because I thought that I was going through like a breakup, but hearing that from him, like that he never really saw me as that ever, it sort of made me feel almost completely like invalidated. Like, even though I loved him, and in my experience we had been dating and, you know, etc., I was like, if from his end he always knew we weren't dating, then doesn't that mean that my experience is wrong? Like, I'm not going through a breakup. I never had a boyfriend to begin with. So on top of the pain I was feeling from having to cut him out of my life, because I really did genuinely care about him, I was then dealing with this almost like existential crisis of like, what has the past year of my life been? Even if the reality that I was living in wasn't true. So that was really, really a tough thing to navigate. So I share that story with you guys because I think it's a good cautionary tale of what can happen when you do not love and respect yourself as a person. Like, it can be dangerous, some of the stuff that you put up with. Like, at one point, my mood and self-worth was literally so dependent on whether or not he was happy with me or angry with me that when he was angry, I was having some very dark, sad, scary thoughts about myself, and what I deserved to have happen to me. And that is, no one deserves to be treated the way I was treated by him. No one deserves to have those thoughts about themselves. And ultimately, I think realizing how deep I had gotten into that headspace without realizing it, showed me that I had to seriously do some reflection and work on myself before I could ever be ready for another or a real relationship. So now on to some of the mindset shifts that happened that I think could be helpful to some of you. So first of all, and this will not apply to everyone, but it will apply to some people, I realized that I just simply was not mature enough and not in touch with myself enough to have a healthy relationship. Even if I was able to find a guy who would treat me better than he did, I just knew that internally I needed to do some work on myself first. And that really helped me be okay with being single for a time. And even though I'm in a better place, I still sort of feel like that. I don't think I am emotionally ready to be in a relationship. I think I still have work that needs to be done. And realizing that really helped me a lot, to encourage me to dive deeper into my self-love journey, and also to comfort me that I logically just am not ready for a relationship yet. And that kind of goes along with something that my mom always told me growing up, and she told this to other people as well, like my cousins when they were in their 20s and struggling with romance. She would always tell everyone, when you are solid in your relationship with yourself and you are no longer actively searching for a relationship with a partner, that's when you'll find your person. And that's what she always said. And when she told that to my oldest cousin kind of didn't believe her, but then lo and behold, a few years later, she sort of had matured and wasn't actively looking for a person, and she found her partner, and they've been together for many years and they're very happy. And literally the same thing happened with my slightly younger cousin. As soon as she stopped looking, she found her person. So I have no reason to believe that that will not also be the case for me. That once I am finally ready for a healthy, loving relationship, it will find me. But until then, I'm just meant to be single for whatever reason, probably for my greater good. Secondly, I sort of came to the realization that life can change for better or for worse in an instant. And I sort of thought to myself, what if I were to find the love of my life tomorrow? And from tomorrow onwards, I was with that person until the day I die. Then today is the last day I might ever have to be single and to only be focusing on myself. And it's a special time. It genuinely is a special time. And in the trajectory of our lives, for a lot of us, it's a short time. And I obviously don't know exactly when I'm going to find my person. But the point is that I don't know when I'm going to find my person. So I might as well enjoy this time of being single while I can. And that has been a very comforting thought for me. especially lately, as I've been sort of warming up to the idea that I might almost be emotionally mature enough to have a relationship. And I've started getting a little bit, impatient. Like, when am I going to meet someone? When am I going to meet someone? That thought has really kept me grounded of like, okay, you actually don't know when you might meet someone. So enjoy what you have now in case this period of your life is almost over. And then another big mindset shift that I had that is more related to loving yourself rather than like waiting or being with someone else. Another big realization that I came to was that no one is ever going to be able to know me the way that I know myself. Because at the end of the day, there will never be another person that knows you like you know you. There will never be another person who's been with you literally every second of every day, that has been inside your head as you like navigate traumatic life events and sadness and happiness, and ultimately only you have that firsthand experience of what it's like to be you. You've been with yourself every second since you were born. So at the end of the day, even if you find a really loving partner and a soulmate, like, in a way, you kind of have to be your own soulmate and your own biggest love, because no one else is ever going to love you like you can love yourself. And realizing that also really helped me to feel less lonely, because I was like, hey, like, at the end of the day, if nobody else has got me, I've got myself, and as long as I have myself, I'll be fine, which is good news because I'm gonna have myself for the rest of my life. So yeah, that also really impacted me a lot and has helped me to stay more positive. And lastly, I think I've kind of realized that with intention and with the right mindset, you can make the most out of nearly any situation. Like, being single might really suck in some ways, but that doesn't mean it can't be meaningful or helpful. Like, I believe that because I'm doing this work on myself now, I'm going to be better off for it in the future. Like, now I've had this experience of living alone, of, living because like now I have better emotional regulation than I did before. I am more in touch with my emotions and what triggers me and where my weak spots are as a person. And I feel like that will help me be a better partner in the future. And also having all that information will help me make better decisions about who I choose to let in my life, and will ultimately help me find the best partner for me instead of just settling for anyone, because not every person is right for every person. And that is not something that I, realized before. And I just really think that, there's no downside to doing this internal work on myself. So I guess if I were to sort of summarize this, I would just say being single is a blessing and a curse. There are aspects of it that suck. Like, don't get me wrong. Sometimes do I wish that I could have someone to hold me when I cry and to share my good news with, and, to like spend holidays together, and, all of the couple things. Of course, I would love to have that, but I also think that there are upsides to being single as well. And I plan on taking advantage of the upsides of being single for as long as I can. That way I have no regrets when it's time to transition into the next phase of my life of being in a relationship. Right, now finally, to close out this video, some ideas for things that you can do this month or anytime to enjoy being single just a little bit more. My first sort of category of things is getting to know yourself, activities that will let you get to know yourself on a deeper level, because a lot of people just kind of assume they already know themselves, but that's not true. Like, you can always dive a little deeper. So some things that, I like to do is journaling, doing shadow work, and a lot of times, like, especially like as a beginner, I would just like look up questions to ask yourself or shadow work questions to answer, and then I would just find one that piqued my interest, and then I would like write the answers down. And it did help me get to the bottom of a lot of things, like learning what my triggers are, learning where certain insecurities stemmed from and stuff like that. Another really fun thing that I like to do is take personality tests. And I usually like the 16 personalities one. I think I've taken that like multiple different times. I kind of take it every year to see where I'm at, see if anything has shifted or changed. And those are just like fun, silly ways to get to know yourself just a little bit better. And another thing that I like to do is when I'm feeling really upset about something, I will set up my phone and just talk to my phone, like take a video and just talk to my phone as if I would talk to someone if I called them, just like ranting and ranting. And not only does it might sound a little weird, but it is effective, because instead of calling someone and kind of like burdening them with like my problems all the time, not that I don't still talk to people when I need to, but you can't just be calling other people and ranting like 24/7. So videoing myself ranting sort of helped me have that same feeling of being listened to, and then I could kind of watch the video back in a way of like, what would I say to this person who is me, I know, but if it was like a friend or a family member saying the same things. And it sort of formed this like interesting bond with myself, where now when I'm upset, I kind of know what to do to make myself feel better, and I don't have to rely on other people to do that for me. So that's a good like emotional regulation tip, I think, for when you're single, and also just a way to get to know yourself on a deeper level and learn what upsets you. Now, category number 2 is learning to show yourself all 5 love languages. And when I first heard of this concept, I was like, hey, how is that possible? Like physical touch, how can you show yourself that love language? But yoga does that. You can book a massage. I've never been able to do that because I'm broke, but if you had money, you could like book a massage. Literally, like in times of stress, I learned that there's this technique where you loop your thumbs like this, and then you just alternate tapping your chest, and it calms you down. And it's almost like giving yourself a hug. So if you don't have like a partner who you can go and have them give you a hug when you're upset, you can do this, and it more or less activates the same things within your body. So there's that. Words of affirmation is easy. Like, you just say affirmations to yourself in your head out loud while you're looking in the mirror. And at first that might seem pretty weird, but over time you honestly get used to it, and I honestly found it really helpful and effective. And then like gift giving, you can, treat yourself to something, like maybe your favorite coffee or a new nail polish. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive. Then there's obviously quality time, and for that you can go on like a solo date. You can literally just take a walk outside without your phone and just be present with yourself and in your thoughts. There's acts of service, which is another one that I was kind of like, hey, how is that possible? But you can do this by like booking an appointment for yourself or cleaning your house, because technically you're doing that for your future self. Like, you're not, I mean, most people don't enjoy cleaning as they're doing it, but you know that it will make your future self happy when they get to live in a clean house. So that's an act of service. Pretty much anything can be showing love to yourself if you look at it that way and do it with intention. And then finally, just get a hobby. Like, hobbies are so helpful in learning how to enjoy your life, especially when you're living alone and you don't have a partner. Like, hobbies have been so pivotal for me. Like, I enjoy my freedom to kind of spend my time exactly as I want to. And I'm sure that when I meet the right person and it's time to give up some of that solo time to be with them, that's fine. But for right now, while I have the time to do so, if I get distracted watching videos about what the ancient Egyptians eat in a day, or if I want to, spend all my free time that night cross-stitching and watching The Vampire Diaries, like, I can do that. And so I'm enjoying my ability to be able to do those things. And, different people will have different hobbies: crafting, watching movies, reading books, gardening, playing a sport. Gaming is another big one for me personally. I like to listen to podcasts and play chess, and there's just endless opportunities, and especially when you have the extra time on your hands because you aren't in a relationship. Use that to foster your interests and, enjoy your hobbies. And I really think that that is a great way to romanticize your single life. Oh, and then finally, one bonus activity that I'm going to be doing this month is on Valentine's Day, I'm actually going to write myself a love letter. And that might sound super cringe and super weird to some people, but I've seen other people do it, and it's just something that I want to try. I think it could be a meaningful self-love exercise. So if you're interested in that, you could try that as well. And that's pretty much all I have to say on this topic. I feel like I've been word vomiting for a really long time. But this is just like a topic that I'm really passionate about, and it has made me like a lot happier in the past year and a half as I've been learning about, all my inner workings, and I feel like it's matured me as a person. And if anyone is in the place that I was at a year and a half ago, this is sort of like what I wish I would have heard from someone else. So I hope that anyone found this video helpful, and thank you for watching it. And if you'd like to follow along with my journey of growing and maturing, I hope you'll subscribe. And my cat just shut himself in my bathroom for the 1,000th time, so I'm gonna go now. But thank you for watching this video.